Grant is going to host it, and he had the easiest name to remember, but it's not written on here, the last name. What was it? Cook, Grant Cook. He's from Litecoin Underground. Grant is the host of a weekly Litecoin Twitter or X Spaces and the first Litecoin podcast. He is a longtime Litecoin holder and user with a goal of fostering a fun, positive community for Litecoin. And Vlad Kostya they're going to introduce themselves, and Paul Stortz and Joel Valenzuela are going to all introduce themselves as Grant Cook interviews them all, so please give them a warm Litecoin welcome. Clap all the way until they get seated, or else it's really awkward on the video. Like, keep clapping until they get seated. Yes.
Okay, cool.
I love this space.
All right, that is the Rand. If you guys aren't familiar with me, my name is Grant Cook. I host Litecoin Underground. Spaces every Wednesday, and Rand is one of our followers. So I recognize a lot of people who have come in here. I just want to thank the foundation for having us. We're doing an interesting topic today, but I'm just going to have these guys go down the line, introduce themselves, and kind of what they do. So Vlad, if you want to start.
Yeah, so this panel, is this working? I think.
Yeah.
It should be more here. Should bring it up. Okay, so this panel is called The Good, the Bad, the Ugly about the Lightning Network.
Well, who are you?
I'm the one who's supposed to defend the Lightning Network, so I guess I'm the good. Who's the ugly one?
Well, what do you do? You have a podcast, right?
Yes, I host the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. I have been doing this for 5.5 years. Paul is actually sponsoring me, but today I'm supposed to fight him.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. It's like a conflict of interest there.
Yeah.
And Vlad just recently created a Litecoin version of his magazine. If you can, go out there and check it out. It's beautiful
Only
looking.
50 of them were printed, and 13 of them were signed by Charlie, and you can get them for 1 Litecoin, so you better FOMO.
Yeah. They're very cool, very well done. And Joel Valenzuela, your claim to fame is living on crypto, right?
Yeah.
Among other things.
Yeah, everyone. So my name is Joel Valenzuela, and I've been in crypto around 12 years now, but for the past 8 years, I've been living unbanked off crypto. Currently, I do biz dev and marketing for Dash, and I also have my own podcast, as if we needed more in this space, called Digital Cash Network, and I'm proud to be a occasional guest of the Litecoin Underground as well, which is, kind of my claim to fame here.
Yeah. And Paul?
Yes, I am Paul Stortz, founder and CEO of Layer 2 Labs and creator. Is this not working? Is this
You're good.
Move it up? Let's see. Oh.
You guys hear everybody?
Lift it a bit.
Lift it. We'll just hold it.
We're
It
good.
has something to do with my hands. I'm Paul Stortz, founder and CEO of Layer 2 Labs and creator of DriveChain, which is BIPs 300-301, and that's a pretty important project that I'm going to be talking about. I think at 3 later today, if we're still on schedule. I don't know if the schedule didn't change. And I also am now I'm a big critic of the Lightning Network. I wrote this article, Lightning Network Fundamental Limitations, like 2.5 years ago. And ever since writing that article, people have been copying the points and even the format and even the title. They have panels that are like Lightning limitations and stuff. That's a very common thing. And so they invited me to come speak on this panel topic.
Yeah, well, so the reason, and I think it's kind of worth saying, right? This is the Litecoin Summit, and people would say, well, the Lightning Network isn't really doing anything because it's not needed yet. So why do you want to talk about Bitcoin Lightning at a Litecoin Summit? And my thinking about bringing this topic up was that we get a little preview into the future. That if we get to see how is Lightning performing on Bitcoin today, does that tell us something about how it will perform on Litecoin in the future? What are the limitations? What are some things we should be maybe aware of? Should we have as much focus on it as Bitcoin has had? Or should we stray from it, right?
I think this is kind of a weird thing. I mean, Lightning Network, I think the whole reason that one of the good things, it's good for Litecoin that the Lightning Network is such a failure, because if Lightning Network was so great, then we wouldn't have this great BitPay stat that so many people are actually using. They can't use BTC, so they just turn to something that works, which is Litecoin. And if the Lightning Network worked, that would almost be terrible, I think, I'd like to throw that idea out there, perhaps.
Well,
So I
I mean,
don't-
let's do the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I think
Okay.
it's a nice way to present this. And Vlad, you are what I would say the most entrenched, at least you used to be more in the Bitcoin maximalist culture, where Lightning was the primary scaling solution, and it was the greatest thing in the world. It was going to make everybody have free self-custody forever. That didn't come to fruition, I would say. But what are some of the things you think that it has been successful on the Lightning Network to date?
Well, if you join the Nostr echo chamber, you're gonna see that people send to each other tips pretty much every day, very small amounts.
Okay.
It's custodial. I think custodial Lightning has some use cases, and it's interesting. It's against the reasons why I got into Bitcoin in the first place.
Right.
But there seems to be a subset of users who are just fine with having a custodian because they believe if it's a Bitcoiner who's custodying the funds as opposed to a business, they're going to be more honest. But honestly, there are some reasons to not believe in this. Also, I remember back in early 2018 when Lightning finally made it to a main chain, it was actually on Litecoin. And I ran a node back in the day, and I did some testing. It was with eCurrency Hodler. I'm not sure if he is here, but he was one of, if not the greatest educator in the history of Litecoin. And he helped me set that up, and then I burned my SSD because of that. So I actually do have some proof of work behind trying Lightning so early on. And all of that expertise that was generated, all the feedback loop from having Lightning on Litecoin was taken to Bitcoin. Because Charlie, if he's here, he's probably outside, but he is an investor in Lightning Labs. So Lightning Labs, when they had their LND software, they tested that on Litecoin first. So the first mainnet transaction for the Lightning Network actually happened on Litecoin,
Right.
which to me is interesting. And on the long term, I think if we're going to see the Lightning Network growing, and I think it will, even if we get drive chains, maybe those are going to be a good way to onboard people to Lightning. Who knows? Lightning is very chain agnostic, so you can have cross-chain situations where you swap. They're called atomic swaps. And on top of this L2, you can have these decentralized exchanges that take no
Right.
fees, and you can build markets with that. So Litecoin can actually take the best implementation of Lightning from Bitcoin and perfect it.
Right, right. Well, so Joel, these are the good points. You're the bad, I guess. No offense, Paul. You can see where this is going.
I could be
Joel,
the
what do you think?
could be the ugly
then-
if people want.
Because the utopia that was sold was, these millions of transactions, feeless, everyone keeps control of their coins, you get enhanced privacy, like all the things you love about Bitcoin, but even better. That's what was kind of sold for 7 years. What has prevented that from coming to fruition?
Yeah, to answer that really quickly, I would say it's structural. It's never going to happen like that, and never could happen like that because of the structure. But I'm not going to come here as a Lightning critic, as more of like a realist who thinks it has applications and its place. So also for context, I've heard about Lightning since a long time ago. And then when it actually kind of started to roll out in like 2021 type era in kind of a usable way, I decided, I've heard all the arguments of it's going to work, it's going to do everything, and then you got the Bitcoin Cash mostly side of things saying, oh, it's a big scam, centralize this and that, and I'm like, well, I don't actually know, so I'm going to use it. So I ran on my own Lightning node, right, and experimented with that and ran that for a few months, asked for help all over the community, bought liquidity channels from Bitrefill and things like that, and just kind of took a deep dive into it as an actual user, and also used a lot of the more popular, what they call non-custodial Lightning wallets, like Phoenix, for example, is always my go-to, Breeze as well. And I think that the Lightning Network it largely works under two models, which it seems like it's been packaged and sold for neither of these two. The one model is that I think was closer to what was originally envisioned might have been is the more peer-to-peer model where everyone will run their own node of some kind. Everyone will open and close channels all the time. That kind of model that would require a lot of on-chain scaling to work. And that model, in my opinion, would only work if, first of all, you had just significantly more on-chain capacity, it would reduce the amount of on-chain transactions by a certain amount, but not dramatically. Like instead of, for every 5, 6 Lightning, 7 Lightning payments, you'd have to make an on-chain transaction. So it'd cut those down, but you'd still be using a ton of Lightning on-chain transactions to open a channel. Like let's say I want to send to Vlad, and we're transacting back and forth. We have a channel, but then I need to rebalance it every once in a while. I'd open a new transaction, or then with Grant or whatever. That model can work, but again, it doesn't work with the on-chain scaling limitations of Bitcoin.
The difficult part too with the payment channel concept is that how often do you really have two-way payments going on with somebody right? It's either I'm paying my rent. It's all going in one direction every single month. It's not like my landlord's sending me rebates for some reason, right? So having these kind of cooperative payment channels doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right?
Yeah, it can in some things, like obviously like the bar tab type situation. Like, let's just say I've been paying Vlad back and forth for whatever, and then I decide, I'm going to open a tab at the bar, and every time I get a new drink, I pay for it instantly with Lightning. But I don't, and then I don't actually settle on-chain till the end of the night, and then Vlad's like, I'm going to buy one too, but then he just piggybacks off of our channel to do it. Small cases like that can, again, reduce the amount of on-chain transactions, but not substitute for them. That's the big thing, is it's sort of been pitched as like a substitute. If you can substitute them, that's when the other model comes in, which is, as they call it, the hub and spoke type model, which we've started to see happen a lot. A lot of Lightning adoption has happened through institutions, like, for example, Coinbase, Kraken, all these big things. One of the more popular wallets, the Async, the Phoenix wallet, connects to this 1 mega node that routes everyone's transactions through.
Right.
And unfortunately, I can't really use Lightning anymore because after I shut down my node, I was only using the Phoenix wallet, and then they don't service US customers anymore because of money transmission issues. And so now it kind of got shut out of that. But the point is, those big kind of hub and spoke models where everyone has a Lightning service provider, like a bank account, kind of, but with semi-self-custody, right, where you have funds in a channel that you can sort of force close.
Ideally.
They can't really steal it.
Today you do, but we don't know if that lasts.
Yeah, so that's the other model that, again, I think can work. I think it requires a bunch of trust trade-offs. I don't like that world. But that's another model that Lightning could be optimized to use for, because then the only on-chain transactions are just people like Coinbase and Kraken rebalancing their channel if they have some issues with like liquidity on one side.
I don't think it will work for either of those, and I think that it's like
By the way,
the puzzle really.
Before you launch in this, I'm not saying it's the most ideal situation for this. I'm just saying these are
the puzzle
better
is,
use cases.
given that how broken it really is, why does everyone still talk about it? And I just think that the actual answer to that is just that people have invested so much of their ego or even VC money, et cetera, so much of the brand of so many different companies. A lot of people have, some people have, not to name names or whatever, but certain companies, they have like a whole Bitcoin section and they have like a whole Litecoin thing on the top of their webpage. So it really is like a bizarre kind of psychosis where even people have started to use the word Lightning to describe things that are completely and totally unlike what, the inventors had in mind. There's something that doesn't use HTLCs, the custodial Lightning being the perfect example of something that doesn't even use Bitcoin at all, is just an account on a website. It's just a number.
It's like Bitcoin in name only.
There's no HTLCs, there's no Bitcoin, there's no promise of getting your money back at all. But people will call that custodial Lightning with a straight face, and so then it just broadens the category of what is considered the Lightning Network further, and then you have all these weird other problems like Wallet of Satoshi or whatever getting pulled because it's not actually crypto, it's not actually Bitcoin at all. They just people complain and they say this person is running an unlicensed bank or whatever, which they are.
Well, so
then
you're
they pull.
going to be, obviously I'm going to let Paul be the ugly section.
Yeah.
My question
I mean,
to you, so there's trade-offs, there's
Yeah.
compromises. I think if we're looking at the original intent of Bitcoin and Litecoin to be this self-custody money, you're obviously sacrificing a lot of those things to even interact with Lightning at all, to any scale. Is it salvageable? Is there anything that that Litecoin using this as a reference and saying, well, maybe it's doable if blocks
Honestly,
are
the
bigger. Maybe
opportunity
it's
for
doable.
Litecoin is do not fall into the Bitcoin cult and start, because the Bitcoin cult is very, very harmful to Bitcoin in many ways. So the opportunity would be to say, this is Litecoin. We are not going to drink the Kool-Aid.
Right.
I'm going to say that I'm going to mix up Lightning and Litecoin probably a couple times if I just say this without thinking about it very carefully. But the you want to not drink the Lightning Kool-Aid and say we will not make that mistake. I think it has been a huge distraction for BTC, and it has also, as they say, taken the air, sucked the air out of the room where people are focusing on that. The culture rewards moving in that direction. You can only climb the totem pole by working on Lightning, or you say that you have a Lightning project and you get funding. This has altered the whole trajectory of everyone's focus, and I think it ultimately will just not pay off. I actually think almost all the L2s that people are working on will eventually have a problem where the fees that they collect are not passed. Everyone has basically the same model, which is that you collect fees from usage, and then that rewards the people to not rug pull the system. Even Bitcoin kind of works that way because the transaction fees are collected each block, and then rugging the system would be rewriting the blocks, and rewriting the blocks takes proof of work, and that the cost of writing the blocks is exactly what the transaction fees is in the future when there's no block subsidy. So everyone has that model in mind, but some of the L2s, most of them, including the Lightning Network, do not pass the fees down to the L1 miners. And the reason why that is significant is because the L1 miners can destroy any L2 they want at any point. So if they have a choice between the L1 miners collecting all these transaction fee revenues from merge mining or something like that, or sitting by and earning nothing and watching someone else, the Lightning LSP, Lightning Service Provider, or the ARC Supernode or whatever, watching those people earn hundreds of billions of dollars a year in transaction fees as there's some kind of like hyper Litecoinization or hyper or whatever, the L2 takes over, the ARC Supernode takes over the world and does everyone's payment. They will just say, well, we will just block that. We'll block people from sending into or out of that or using that or doing even the BitVM challenge thing. The miners could censor that. Anything based on ZK proofs, the miner could censor the ZK proof. So,
well, I think and that's the important thing that I kind of wanted to drive at is that Lightning it's here to stay, right? Unless for some reason SegWit goes away. If Coinbase wants to launch Litecoin Lightning, a lot of these businesses may add Litecoin Lightning capabilities. But more than anything, is this a place where our energy should be directed? And again, I'm not a developer, and so I think about if I am somebody who wants to develop on Litecoin, what should be the things that are being focused on that could bring some scalability? And I know Paul's got an answer, a whole presentation about it later today, but that maybe, those are things to think about. Don't spend your energy on something that maybe we're seeing is not able to work in the way that we initially were told it was going to work.
Well, just give it 18 months.
Yeah, everything's 18 months. Everything's 2 weeks, right?
yeah, see, that's the joke is that Lightning, they always said it's 18 months away or whatever. They said that over and over again. They said that with proof of stake. Also, Ethereum said that. But Ethereum, actually, to their credit, they finally got they did proof of stake. And then people say, well, Lightning exists now, Lightning works. But Lightning has only ever had, 4,000 something Bitcoin on the whole thing, which is, I'm not sure exactly. I should probably run the numbers to make absolutely certain, but look at all the money raised by Lightning companies. It's probably less than that.
Right.
So this is just I
do have some
4,000.
stats.
If there's 19.5 million coins, this is hundredths of a percent.
I got stats somewhere. Something like 5,000 Bitcoin are on the Lightning Network. But you can't know how many transactions. I think the most evident thing to me is somebody like BitPay offers Lightning and nobody uses it. BitRefill offers Lightning and nobody uses it, which is interesting. Well, but it's interesting to me why that isn't, right? Is it the convenience factor? Is it just because it's just more hassle than it's worth? Because you would think that people would want free transactions, but they don't. They don't seem to want.
Joel,
They're
you
not
would know.
free, honestly. So I paid for my plane ticket with Lightning, and the fee that I paid to Phoenix was $2.5, and the on-chain fee right now for Bitcoin is 50 cents. So
Doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
So you should use
yeah, and I don't want to
Litecoin.
say that like I don't want to say that it like can't work or that it will never be good for one or two other things. And in fact, I came up with something that I called a version of fraud proofs that basically requires something like the Lightning Network in order to work. I don't know if anyone will ever care about that, but so I'm not saying that Lightning Network is like a completely like evil thing or whatever, but what I am saying is there's this giant like illusion field over it where everyone is hyping it because they think Lightning equals Bitcoin equals number go up, and so very few of these people, even software engineers working at Lightning companies, many of these people have come up to me, the Lightning critic guy, the ugly or whatever. They come up to me and in person they say, not until I read your article that I realized that I didn't know how the Lightning Network worked, or they say stuff like that. And I have another post, the LN Black Pill, where I have collected quotes from the people who are working on the Lightning Network, including the inventor, Tash Draja, Rene Picard, the author of Mastering Lightning, the book.
Well, I think, we got to wrap up here quickly, but
So-
I think, what's nice about
Very
being the host
negative
is I get
quotes.
to go last and no one can rebut my opinions here. So, no, I think just whenever you find in crypto in general, if someone tries to act like they're going to get everything that the main chain offers, and you're going to just get the exact same experience through some other method, I think is just your ears should perk up. Like, that doesn't make any sense. How did Satoshi take years to come up with this solution, and someone's going to just abstract it away in a nice corporate package? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, self-custody, use Lightning at your with caution, and I don't know if you guys want to add any last things. I think we're out of time, but you have one last thing you want to add?
Yeah, I would add that, global payments system. As a global payment system, I would not recommend the Lightning Network, really. What it does do is, because it's super localized, and it's like the transactions between you and whoever you're doing it with, the rest of the network doesn't know about, it doesn't really hit these scaling limitations that global networks do, or the same constraints. So if you have anything where you have an insane amount of volume that only a few people need to know about and be involved in, it could work for that. And so everyone involved with the Lightning Network, I would say just abandon the whole, like, I'm going to buy my coffee everywhere in the world with part. I would recommend focus on, like, maybe an internal social network. Again, like, that's why something like Nostr is where you see a lot of this. Focus on stuff where you need a ton of transactions that the whole world does not need to know about.
Do we have time for questions? Can I do questions? Does anybody have one, or are we good?
Also, I wrote an article in my magazine, which you'll find outside, about Lightning on Litecoin, so you can read that if you want. Okay. It's a good intro. It explains Lightning as islands that need to build bridges between each other. So if you want to send cars to another island, you need to build a bridge.
Okay.
But the other island cannot use the same bridge to send cars to you. So that's how Lightning works.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so no questions? Oh. Oh, well, it says 0 up here, so I thought we were done. Okay. All right, there's no questions then? We're good?
We can-
All
there's
right,
a
I think we're
question.
good. You can come up here, Marty.
Someone has
wait.
a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just yell it out. Yeah, the gentleman's question was like, can it be like business to business instead of like involving the end user? And this is part of a big trend of people correctly realizing that the Lightning Network is not this cure-all that everyone thought it would be, and so now everyone's walking everything back and trying to find some box where they can fit this. Not that that's what I'm saying that that gentleman was saying, but I think definitely it's not the consumer experience, for payments. Like the payment cannot fail. Like if you had Visa and MasterCard and one of them failed like 1 out of every 100 times and the other one worked every time, that would be the kiss of death for whichever one failed, because it's just too humiliating to be in the restaurant or waiting in line and it doesn't fail and you're like, okay, try it again. And the Lightning Network is not going to hit that kind of reliability anytime soon. And in Vlad's metaphor of islands where you have to build the bridge before you can ship anything back and forth is very good because the onboarding problem is very severe. In order to use the Lightning Network, you need to first use an L1 transaction between the two parties. So every single person who wants to join the Lightning Network has to do something on L1. So you're building an awful lot of bridges for something where the better solution would be to just sail around on the water and not
use
use,
Litecoin.
not use lumber or whatever to build these bridges.
Or use a plane.
Or use a plane. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Marty's coming up. Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Good job, guys. Good job. I'd like to officially say that I thought I was catching on until you guys got up here. Now I've lost everything. I don't understand any of it anymore.